we're looking at the SAC questions for 5.4, which is around the stance and the focus of monetary policy. Students get a little confused in this area. They're sort of like, well, what is the focus? Remember, focus is just what is the RBA trying to do in terms of its goals. Now, I guess the reason it's caused students concern in the past is the focus sort of just has changed. But for you at the moment, the focus is as per the charter. Inflation first, strong and sustainable growth, and full employment second. And you can read this in the RBA's writing. So, first of all, you need to explain the stance. Okay, remember the stance, is it expansionary or contractionary? Contractionary, unless the examiner asks you about something sort of hypothetically, which they may well do. Contractionary is not in our vocab when we're talking about the current economy. It's all expansionary policy on the AD front. So monetary policy, highly expansionary. Budgetary policy, highly expansionary. Because this is a contemporary question over the past 2 years. So you're going to say, well, we have a highly expansionary stance, and you're going to show me why you know or how you know that it's highly expansionary. So I want to see in there something about the cash rate being at 0.25%, and that's a long way away from neutrality. Okay, so the red is for describing the stance as highly expansionary. I also like you to put it in brackets here that highly expansionary means that it's supporting or increasing aggregate demand. Okay, so what is an expansionary stance actually trying to do? So 2 marks there. So I guess really 1 is just is being able to say that it's a highly expansionary stance. 2 is sort of giving a little justification for how we know it's highly expansionary. Straightforward there. Be careful, the examiner does like to, particularly when we've got a simple scenario at the moment where all policies are highly expansionary, the examiner does like to trick you and give you sort of like an imagine question. Imagine if the economy was doing really well. So don't fall for that trick. All right. Again, this is a contemporary question, so it says explain 2 contemporary factors, economic factors that are influencing the RBA stance and focus over the past 2 years. So we're saying, well, what's behind their decision-making in order, behind the decision-making to come to a highly expansionary stance, and what is their focus? What are they trying to do with that highly expansionary stance? You could use any number of contemporary factors over the past 2 years. There are probably like 100 contemporary factors in the RBA's writing over the last 2 years that are influencing their stance. Because remember, there's some factors which are saying, oh, you know what, this is good. And some factors are saying this is really bad. And then they weigh them all up and say, okay, more good than bad or more bad than good. And therefore, we'll take an expansionary or a contractionary stance. Now, at the moment, they're mostly bad, so they've taken a highly expansionary stance. But I have written a good factor. There's not many, but I have used 1 good factor just to show you that it can be done. So for you, you could use 2 negative factors. The first and probably the most obvious is I've said there's been a lockdown in the economy. Guess what? The government shut down our economy. That's a real negative factor for the economy. So the lockdowns have influenced the RBA's stance. We know that they were concerned with that. They wrote about it in their March minutes. So with the lockdowns negatively affecting private spending, so you could say negatively affecting aggregate demand or the economy, the RBA is concerned about this. So there's 2 marks for sort of identifying and explaining the factor, each of those factors. Okay, so I've got it in pink, and then another one here for the impact on the economy, which is in blue. And I've just messed up this color coding here, so I'll fix that here. So the pink is identifying the factor, and the blue is, what is the factor telling us? Is it a negative or a positive? What's the impact on the economy? So I've done that twice. The next one I used was the terms of trade. The terms of trade is actually positive in Australia. It means we're receiving higher price for our exports relative to our imports. That's good for national income. It's good for our mining companies. They're going to pass that down to consumers, hopefully, in the form of higher wages and dividends. So it's actually a positive for aggregate demand. The RBA says, yeah, okay, we've got this terms of trade that's going pretty good. But despite that, their focus is still on lifting inflation, which is in red here. I'm doing the focus, still on lifting inflation first. And I've put there, we currently have a deflationary figure of negative 0.3. Get rid of that. I'll get rid of that. Forget that for a second. Cancel. And creating jobs, so to push the unemployment rate currently at over 7% to its target range of 4 to 4.5. So I'm saying here, hey, guess what? Their focus is, as per usual, inflation, then full employment. And I could write about strong sustainable growth, but I probably don't need to. The last mark in orange here is about the stance. And again, you could have the stance first and then the focus. You could have this all back to front. As long as you've hit these main points, you'll be fine. Again, I'm just stating here that they've done this. Well, in order to achieve this, they're taking a highly expansionary stance. And they've done 2 cuts, and the RBA has got its current cash rate at 0.25%. So that's all there for you in, I was going to say black and white, but in colour on your site for you to unpack and to mark yourself before you submit it to me. Bye for now.